here with Katherina, who has been a longtime friend and fellow adventurer. And we thought it'd be fun to talk about her experiences a little bit because she's done a lot of different and varied kind of things in her time. But before we get into all of your adventure stuff, let's give a little like history and context of who you are and how we know each other. So we've known each other since high school. We met through a mutual friend, right? Because I went to the same middle school that fed into your high school, but then I changed schools, and then you became friends with somebody that I had known from that time at the school,
I think
right?
we met at Marley Station Mall at that, what is it, Sbarro, however you say it, that pizza place.
Is that when we met?
Yeah.
And Marley Station, for anybody that doesn't know, is was our stomping ground mall back when people used to go to malls to socialize and hang out. Like every Friday night, it was like, let's go to the mall and just walk around. I don't know if we'd buy stuff half the time. We would just walk around and maybe go to Sbarro. Yeah. So then we became friends, and we went to concerts together and had a lot of similar connecting over that kind of stuff. But then as we got older, went off to college, and we kind of doing a lot of urban adventuring together. We did a spring break in New York.
Yeah.
Remember that one? And
that was my first time there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was your first time in the city?
Yeah. And that's my first time in a hostel too.
Oh, that's right. Mine too.
Yeah,
I think my first and only time in a hostel.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, I thought that was, I thought you were like a hostel expert. Okay.
Only vicariously. I talked to other people and their hostel experiences. Because like when I went to Ireland with my parents, we talked about hostels, but then we ended up staying at nicer B&Bs. I think hostels are more of a generational thing, right? Like once you, it's more of a young, free flowing.
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
thing.
It's cost efficient, so definitely helps with that for sure. Yeah, and then we went skydiving. That was my first time going skydiving, and
we went skydiving, and that was the one in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Skydiving, and we went. We did a lot of theme parks and stuff, and we went skiing.
Yeah.
A couple times.
It was my first time skiing, I think. Yeah, my second time. Yeah, you helped me learn how to ski too. Yeah, been through a lot.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll just say like Katherina has always been up for stuff, like and try new things, and just have that like a very adventurous mindset of, hey, you want to do this? And okay, even if it's something we never done before or something you never done before, but I was more comfortable with, and you would just come along and try it out. And there was never any like fear or hesitation. So I think that definitely like saw that spirit in you early on. And that was something we connected over, because then you came out. So after college years were over and we were professionals, and so I'm talking like late 2000s, and you came out and visited me when I moved to Maui. I think like within weeks of me having actually moved there.
Yeah, because I was starting law school. So I was like, oh, shoot, this is kind of going to be my only opportunity. And I think, you were only there for a week, and like, hey, well, why don't I come visit while I have that time? And we kind of
explored together, because I didn't know half the stuff, and the places to go, and went to Hana and
Haleakala, the volcano.
I think we went to the west side and tried to see as much as we could. Like you do definitely have a beach bum kind of lifestyle, right? Like you like to go to resorts and hang out, but you also like to go do stuff.
Yeah, I'm big on adventuring for sure. Yeah. My dad being from Greece, early on, I was kind of more interested in traveling, but when you're younger, don't really have the opportunity. So I didn't really get to travel as much as I wanted to, even though that was a big goal of mine since I was younger and saw my dad's experiences. He had lived in Germany before he came to the United States, all of that. Really? Yeah. So I had decided that that's something that I wanted to do, but I had to kind of wait for the money, the opportunity. And the kind of baby steps to start were cruises, which I don't necessarily... They're not like my thing now, but I will say if someone is not really comfortable with planning their own trip, or they're just kind of starting off, cruise is kind of a nice way to get your feet wet, because you're just kind of getting on a boat and it's taking you to where you need to go. So that was kind of the first step, for me. was sort of doing these cruises and going to a bunch of different
Where
places
did
that
you,
way.
what areas did you do cruise lines around? Like what regions did you tend to do?
Yeah, it was pretty much all the Caribbean. So there was it was like Haiti, Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, Mexico, places like that, Belize.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they mainly would go out of Florida, which was, just a flight down to Florida. And then they started to have some going on to Baltimore. So, yeah,
Hmm.
so I kind of started with that just because I wasn't really sure of how to sort of go about doing it myself. And then while I was an undergrad, I decided that I wanted to do some study abroad. So that
All
was
right.
a lot easier to do in the summertime rather than a semester. So I believe I was 20 when I spent the summer in London, and that was kind of my first time out of the country on my own. So I did a study abroad in London. And then the following summer, when I was in school, I did a study abroad in Italy. And then
Oh,
after
yeah.
that, I really wanted to kind of do the whole backpacking through Europe thing, graduating from college. So a lot of my friends didn't really have either the money or the opportunity to do so. So I joined a tour group called Contiki, and we were in different places in Europe for about 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that. Yeah, I think that that's probably how a lot of people start, maybe going in groups or, cruises
Sure.
and stuff.
Was there a kind of a transition point? Because I remember talking to you those years after when I was settling into Richmond after I left Maui, and you were in like Aruba a lot and places like that. And were those more vacations, or would you consider that more like travel? Just from the pictures on Facebook and stuff, it looked like you were, more relaxing on the beach. And would you categorize that differently, or was it all kind of part of the same thing?
Yeah, definitely categorize that differently. My family actually has a timeshare, and for a while we would
Oh,
trade it. Yeah, we would trade it and go to Aruba. And at one
okay.
point in my early 20s, it was New Year's Eve, and I'm out in Annapolis and it's freezing, and I'm with like my friends. And at that point, I thought to myself, I don't really want to be cold anymore for the New Year. So from that on, for maybe about 5 or 6 New Years, that was spent in Aruba. And that was more of just the relaxing thing because we already kind of had the timeshare happening.
Oh, okay.
Um, and since then, we've been going to where the timeshare is originally, which is in Riviera Maya, Mexico. So I
Okay.
always kind of thought of those trips as more of like the only time that I would go and just sort of relax because the timeshare, you have a week at a specific place. For me, I kind of
Okay.
prefer kind of moving around. So I'd rather spend a few days here, a few days there. I don't really want to go and just spend the whole week at a certain spot just because I feel like it doesn't really lend to exploring as well. So yeah, so those were more of like my relaxing after a long, year of traveling, kind of an idea. Yeah.
Okay. So then on the other side, then in between, you were traveling.
Yeah. Yeah. So then when I was in law school, I actually kind of wanted to keep with the whole study abroad thing. And then I ended up doing our summer in Australia. Australia had always been for me like that place. Like when you're younger and you think about what would be really cool, where would you really want to go? And for me, that was always Australia. And at the time, I thought, okay, I'm not really going to be able to get the opportunity again because Australia is so far away. It's not like Europe where you can just pop on over for a couple of weeks, or in the US where you can just take a week long vacation. To go to Australia, you really have to take some time. So that was for me thinking, okay, well, this is my opportunity. I really want to go there. So far away. So yeah, so I ended up making that a priority when I was in law school to kind of go and spend the summer over there and make my little dreams come true of finally seeing kangaroos and koalas in the wild. So
You got to hold a koala, didn't you?
yeah, there's only two regions in Australia, at least on the East Coast, that allow you to do so. And that was near the Great Barrier Reef. Yeah, we had a few days off from our school because we were going to school in Sydney.
Hmm.
And so we went to the Great Barrier Reef, went to the rainforest there. That was really cool. And then, yeah, they had koalas. And I try to make sure that when I'm traveling, like I love to see animals, but I also want to make sure they're treated right. So for the koalas there, they kind of just we'll have people, hold the koala. I think in 20-minute periods, people come and go. They only let you kind of hold the koala for maybe 30 seconds. And
Okay.
you're not allowed to like pet it or anything like that. You just kind of have your hands ready. They put the little koala on you, and then it's cute. Like it'll adhere to your shirt, with its little nails.
Uh,
Yeah. And then they take the picture, and then the next person. But yeah, it seemed to me that you never know, but it seemed to me that they were treated pretty well, that they weren't kind of making them spend all day around tourists. And koalas are they're just chill anyway. Like they just want to sleep pretty much all day. So yeah, so
that's
that was
nice.
really fun. It was really amazing experience. Got to climb the Sydney, I think it's the main bridge in Sydney in the harbor, and then you get a
Okay.
view of the Opera House. And
Did you
so
you snorkeled or dove at the Great Barrier Reef?
I did the scuba diving, but
You did.
you didn't get to go like so far down. And it's basically the barrier reef is pretty much sticking out of the water anyway, a lot of it. So you don't
Right.
really have to go that far down to see kind of all of the fish and the wildlife in there. Yeah, so that was Australia. And after that, I just kind of kept going to Europe, and I didn't even realize that I would just kind of go random places to Europe. And then one day I thought, I really want to see other continents. I love Europe, but when I travel, I really like the diversity, and I really like trying, seeing new things, experiencing
Hmm.
new things. And I wanted to try other continents at that point. And so I still had South America, I hadn't traveled to, Africa, Asia, and Antarctica. So at that point, that was kind of my goal. It was like, okay, I'm going to make my goal be to travel to all of the continents. And that's kind of
Cool.
how I started traveling, kind of on like a bigger level, just a lot of places in a year.
So, what was the first next continent you went to after you decided this?
Yeah, so one of my girlfriends, Allison, she had done a lot of traveling by herself as well. And she suggested to me that she wanted to go to Colombia on her spring break because she was in law school. We actually met because
Okay.
I was her mentor
Oh,
as an
cool.
alumni in law school. So they kind of paired us up. So she ended up deciding that she wanted to go to Colombia in South America, and I was totally down for that. So we spent her spring break, I was working at the time in Colombia, which was really, really like a cool place. Before we went, obviously, everyone's telling you how dangerous it is, like two women on our own, be careful.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't really run into a lot of bad experiences. I was on the beach though. Alice and I were on the beach with another friend that we had met, and we didn't realize that it was after hours. So we were essentially like trespassing. And then the police came while we were on the beach, and they came up to us. And luckily, my friend Allison speaks really good Spanish. She actually, I think she studied abroad, but she was in Panama for a while. So she
Okay.
ended up picking up Spanish really well. So they're like talking to her and asking her, why we're there. And she's like, oh, yeah, we didn't know. And then they want to search us. So we're like, okay, cool, that's fine. But I was super nervous because, like,
Yeah.
you're in a foreign country, they could do anything they want to do. And they're just like, just get out of here,
Okay. They
So
didn't
yeah,
want to deal with the
so
paperwork.
so I was like, man, that could have been a really bad situation. But we had a great time. It was really beautiful. It was really great. I will say, since my friend spoke really good Spanish, maybe the experience may have been a little different with communicating had she not been able to speak Spanish really well. But I
Sure.
felt like it was a really great place to go in South America, and I really enjoyed it.
So after Colombia, what was the next continent you got to?
So then it was Africa to South Africa, and that was
Okay.
actually the best place I've ever been. Flew into Johannesburg and drove over to Kruger National Park, where it's just amazing just to have all of these animals that you've only ever seen in a zoo, just kind of walking around, ignoring you, just to see them
Hmm.
all like interact with each other. It was just really amazing. So I think I was there about 5 days and did our own kind of driving safari where you kind of stay at the rest stops, the camp stations, and you just drive and look at the animals yourself. And then also splurged for a couple of days for a private safari So that's the type of safari where they would take you and, they help you track animals and everything like that. So
Wow.
yeah, got to see, buffalo and lions, zebras, rhinos, a hippo. Yeah, it was really amazing.
Wow.
Cool to see all these animals so close to you. So then we drove around to see this canyon, which is supposed to be similar to Grand Canyon, like that with, I think, how
Okay.
big it is or something like that. But that was really amazing to see. And then from there, we drove down to Port Elizabeth, which is called the Garden Route. So you're basically kind of driving around the coast and you just see, all this beautiful water. And I actually ended up going bungee jumping when I was down there. That was never really something I'd thought about doing. Like, you and I went skydiving and I had always in my mind really wanted to do that. So, that was awesome that we were able to do that. But I'd never thought like, what? Bungee jumping, that's what I want to do. However, to get to where we were going, we happened to drive by the highest bungee jumping bridge in the world at that time. So
Whoa.
I was like, all right, I'm here. There's a bridge. You got to
Yeah,
jump off
like
it.
why not?
Right.
When are you
So
gonna be back to do that specifically? You might as well just do it.
yeah. So I did do that. It happened to be pouring down rain at the time as well. And I thought maybe they would cancel because I only had that day because we're just kind of driving by. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty interesting. I didn't realize how much you actually spin around when you're hanging there. Have you done it before?
I've never done bungee jumping. I would. I just never
Yeah,
had the
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. So,
How was it compared
so
to skydiving?
the skydiving just is way better. I mean, the
Really?
view's obviously better because you're
Mm.
so high up. You can just kind of see everything. Yeah, it's different. Your body feels different. And the thing with the skydiving, obviously, if you're not super experienced, you're tied to somebody who's the one doing the work. They're the
Right.
ones that are jumping. They're the ones pulling the chute. But for the bungee jumping, it's all you. Like you're the one who's deciding when to jump off the bridge. And that was a little bit kind of nerve wracking that you're the one that's literally taking your body off there rather than depending on someone else to do that for you. So, yeah, so I feel like it was a little bit more scary in that sense because you don't have
Okay.
somebody with you that's a professional. But it was pretty there. We were it was like a national park. So that was a really pretty view just of the trees and all of that. And then there was the wine country in South Africa, which I'd never heard of South African wine prior to the trip. But yeah, it was really good. And the vineyards, they were just absolutely gorgeous. It was kind of all in this valley. Yeah. So it just was so amazing kind of going there and just, sort of seeing how they do things differently than other places that I've been. They do a lot of the wine tastings sitting down, and all of the tastings are kind of a full glass rather than like a small little sip. And yeah, they're all very beautiful. That was really awesome. And from there, going down to the Point Cape, it's kind of south from Cape Town. And that's where they have the African penguins that people have seen on Boulder Beach that you can see. And then Cape Town, which is such a cute little city. And they have a lot of really awesome hikes. Lion's Head, I believe it's called, which is so different hiking there than here, for example. There's not really a path. They have these kind of chains to sort of pull you up at different spots. Some parts of it, you feel like you're gonna like fall to your death. I actually was going to do it by myself, but when I went, I was at Table Mountain and they have sort of a little gondola that takes you up there. And on the way down, this one random guy from Germany said that he was going over there to do the hike. And so we just decided to do it together. So he and I ended up doing it together. And I was really glad I had someone there with me just because it was kind of dangerous. So you could have easily fallen back and hurt yourself. So I felt better that I had someone there in case, something happened, and he felt the same. But yeah, it was really, really amazing there. And it's such a cute city, Cape Town, and the food is really good. They have really good squid everywhere. Just South Africa in general, it was just the best place. It was so amazing. I just really loved that.
That could probably be a whole nother podcast, like just talking about your cuisine experiences.
Because yeah, I always try to make sure I'm eating like the local food or trying something super weird. I was very disappointed in Thailand. And I know that you've had the little scorpion in Arizona, right? Like you said,
Oh
you've
yeah,
had
in
that.
the
Yeah.
lollipop, yeah.
Yeah. But I really wanted fried scorpion when I was in Thailand and I could not find it. And I asked
Really?
all these tour guides and they were just like, oh yeah, it's not here. I think there's only maybe specific spots in Bangkok that have it. But yeah, I really wanted to
Okay.
try the fried
Just a straight up
scorpion.
scorpion.
Yeah, just to, just because you need an answer for when someone asks you what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten.
Yeah.
So you need to
Well,
have that
so
go-to.
what's your answer so far then until you eat a scorpion?
See, a lot of things I don't know. Like there's nothing that sticks out. I mean, I've had haggis before, the sheep
Okay.
intestine. I've had like a cooked worm or cricket before.
Oh, you have. Okay.
Yeah. Um, chicken feet. Yeah, nothing super crazy. Oh, and like fermented shark. So it's kind of shark that's
Ooh.
been buried in the sand and fermented.
Where was
Um,
that?
Faroe Islands. I need that like definitive, like, yeah,
Right.
it's definitely the fried scorpion. Like that's what I need.
What?
So
Okay. Well, I'm sure that will happen for you at some point. It just needs to be the right time. Um,
yeah.
was Thailand then after South Africa? Was Asia your next spot?
Yeah. So Thailand was after that. And after going to South Africa, that was an 18-hour flight. So I was trying to think of ways to make
Wow.
going to Thailand shorter because it was just rough, like your body being in that position for the 18 hours. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Maybe when I went to Australia, I don't know. Maybe it was just because it was a little bit more comfortable, the particular plane we were in. But I don't
Sure.
remember feeling that bad after going to Australia, like in terms of your body, even though that's a really long flight as well. So yeah, I decided, how am I going to break this up when I go to Thailand? And so what I found was there are a lot of hubs in Amsterdam and Frankfurt, Germany, that go to different places in Africa and Asia. So my thought was like, okay, I'm going to go to either one of those places and spend a few days to kind of just relax, get off the plane, do something fun, and then head over to Asia. So I ended up finding that with Amsterdam. So from Amsterdam, it was only a 10-hour flight versus if you came straight from the US, it probably would have been like a 24, 28 with layovers and all of that. So yeah, I went to Amsterdam for a
Wow.
few days prior to going to Thailand. And then on my way back, went to Amsterdam again for a few days, coming back to the US. But yeah, Thailand in general was really awesome. They were just the nicest people I think I've ever met traveling. And
I've heard that from other people too that have lived there, spent
yeah,
time there, that it's the most
yeah.
friendly and accepting place to be.
And it might be because of the Buddhist culture. I did hear a lot from people to be careful in Bangkok because people might try to scam you, but didn't
That's a big
experience
city.
that. Yeah. And that can be anywhere,
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
city. Everyone's trying to scam you, different places. I mean, starting when we got there, we went from Amsterdam to Bangkok, and then we were taking a plane to go over to Chiang Mai for the beginning of the trip. So when we got there, we were maybe 20 minutes before our next flight was supposed to leave because we kind of got in there late. And I had just resolved, like, all right, not going to make this. I don't care. I'm tired. I don't really care about making this flight. But as soon as we got off the flight, there was this woman there, and she had a sign with like our names on it. And I was like, oh, hey, yeah, that's me. And she's like, oh my gosh, come on, let's go. I'm just like, what? It's like, we got to make the next flight. I'm just like, yeah, it's all right. Like it's fine. But she was just determined. So she takes all
Okay.
of our carry-on stuff and is just like booking it through the airport. And, we're going from an international airport, having to go through customs over
Right.
to the domestic terminal. So I'm thinking, this woman, this is not happening. But she just pulled us all the way through, all the way at the beginning to customs. So we went in front of all these people, and all these people are thinking like, why are these people like getting in front of us? But this woman, she's just pulling us through, making us go do customs really quick. And then like we finally get to the plane, and like the plane like waited for us, I guess. And there was only the three of us. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, I was just like, wow, this is cool. So we ended up making it on time. And this was actually the day before my birthday. So I try to do my birthdays big. Like I usually try to travel for my birthday. So this was one of them. And the next day was my
Awesome.
birthday. And we had big plans to go to this elephant sanctuary.
Right.
So yeah, so I was really happy that we made it. That was great. Like this woman really cared. Like she cared a lot more than we did about making it. So at that point, of course, our luggage was not there because, you know, it was
Right.
20 minutes before. We didn't expect it. That was fine. So we just decided to go to the little markets and buy some clothes for the next day. And it was just funny because I mean, I'm not a big person, and like, you know, the people that I with, they're not big people either, but like nothing really fit very well in these markets. Like they're all made for tiny, tiny little people.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of funny, like trying to find things that would work. So we found some random clothes that, you know, we're deciding, okay, we'll just wear that tomorrow. It's fine. Then it turned out like in the middle of the night, they brought our luggage from the airport to the hotel, which was really awesome. Like I didn't think they were going to do that either. And so we did have our stuff for the morning. So we had all of our stuff that we needed. So that was really
Nice.
awesome. Yeah.
But you still got to have a little side adventure of trying to figure out clothing just in case.
Right. After not sleeping for so long, you know, I mean, when you get
Oh,
off the plane and you're just kind of delirious, like, all right, shoot, I
oh
got to go
yeah.
shopping now. And it's the night markets, and the night markets weren't as kind of crazy as I sort of expected. Like they were just kind of laid back and just like the people there. But yeah, it's like not a lot of things that really could fit. Like I can't imagine being someone from the US who's like 6'4" or like something like that. It's like you're not going to find anything over there to fit you.
I'll say too that like that's a really good point about you know, having like the right people on your side, or you know, just that you've booked things through or that are helping you with stuff when you're traveling. Because if you don't know the area, you don't know all the internal little politics and details about things, you're kind of, yeah, you're left with, you know, just figuring out on the fly. When I was in Jamaica, we had a similar kind of experience where we did it through like Groupon, and it was, you know, fully inclusive deal with everything from transportation to the accommodations. And the guy that picked us up, or you know, he was our cab driver, but he knew people at the airport, and he was able to get us to the, you know, the front of the customs line just because
Yeah.
he like knew people, and then he knew, you know, like other little things, places to stop on the way, you know, that we wouldn't have got if we had tried to do it like on the cheap or just done it completely on our own. We wouldn't have known that, and we would have been stuck. You know, the line for customs was egregiously long. You know, it
Right.
would have taken
Yeah.
hours and hours. And so that's awesome that you were able to have those, all those little serendipitous things that happen when you're open to it.
Yeah, and it's so nice because it's like you don't expect. I mean, you know, you're a foreigner in someone else's country, and you don't really expect that. You just like
Yeah.
it's this was really surprising and really nice. I mean, I was just very surprised by that, and then it kind of continued on from there. So, as I mentioned, you know, I really try to make sure when I travel that we're trying to go to places that are taking care of the animals well, and a lot of places in Thailand they have, you know, so-called sanctuaries, but they'll have things like riding elephants and stuff like that.
I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, so we found one that was ethical and didn't do stuff like that. So for my
Good.
birthday, that's where I spent my birthday, and that was like the best
Nice.
birthday of all time. Going to see all these elephants, and you know, you get to feed them. They will walk out to this mud hole, and you know, you can kind of go in there in the mud hole with them while they're sort of, you know, bathing themselves and all
Hmm.
of that, which is a lot of fun. And then you can take pictures of them, but only if they kind of seem like they're going to be still for you. Like at the sanctuary, they don't want to sort of stop them and pose them with people because, you know, that's not something that the elephant, you know, would want. So yeah, so we're able to
Right.
do that. And I think there was only maybe 15 people total for that particular kind of day. And it was kind of all day just sort of picking up the elephants. And I told them when I got there, they were like, oh, hey, yeah, it's my birthday. not really thinking anything of it, just let the guy know. It was probably like a 6-hour day. And right before we left, the guy's like, oh, hey, I have a surprise for you. And this guy brings out this birthday cake that has like my name on it. It's like all decorated. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, because we're in the middle of nowhere. We're in kind of a tribal area. And I'm just like, oh, where did this even come from? And they had one of their workers drive like about 40 minutes to, I guess, their like shops to go and pick up this cake and brought it back for me. It was just crazy. It's like, you don't care about my birthday more than like pretty much anybody besides my mom.
Aww.
So that was just amazing.
You've done a lot of this stuff with your mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of it?
Yeah.
She's like your travel buddy.
She is my travel buddy. I think it's kind of hard sometimes to find someone who maybe travels the same way that you do, like likes doing the type of things that you do on a trip. And because you've heard that, I mean, people get in fights traveling together all the time. I mean, you're with somebody for so many hours.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we're really on the same page with a lot of things when it comes to traveling. And I know what she likes and she knows what I like. So, we do things that we just try not to push each other's buttons, and we don't really have any problems when we travel together, which is always a good thing. Because a lot of times if you travel with a friend, I kind of worry about that sometimes. Like, okay, I don't want to say something that's going to like upset them or do something that they're not going to like, because you're together all this time. And like different personalities might not work when you're traveling together. So we really work well together when it comes to traveling. So we enjoy spending time together and all of that. Yeah. She did come with me on the Thailand trip, which was nice. And in general, that trip was amazing. We went up to Pai, which is kind of in the mountainous area, and they had this bamboo bridge, which was amazing. Like I'd never seen anything like it. I thought when I saw it on Instagram, like a bamboo bridge, I thought it was just going to be this really short bridge, but probably can walk on the bridge for about 20 minutes, like how long it is. It was really, really amazing and beautiful. And then they had this Buddha up on the mountain that was beautiful. And I was just so happy to see just different regions in Thailand. Like I don't like going to a country and just seeing like the big city and check that off your list and go away. Like I want to see the different landscapes. I want to see like the different atmospheres of small town, beach, big city kind of a thing. And Thailand definitely
comprehensive.
Yeah, it definitely had that. And also went to the beach there, Koh Lanta. It's an island. And I did snorkeling. Some people did scuba diving that were more certified. But that was beautiful there as well. Thailand just kind of has everything, and just the people, like I said, I mean, all of these instances of how nice these people are. And Bangkok too, hired a private guide to go with us to some of the temples because, you can't really drive yourself in Thailand, or you probably shouldn't. And it's so hot too. So you kind of do want to be in the air conditioned a little bit. And it turned out that, we had hired this guide for like X amount of hours, and we were going over the hour mark, and we still had another temple to go to. So I'm just like, it's fine. Like, you're supposed to like leave here at this time. Like, I get it. That's fine. We can go to this other temple ourselves and then, get our way back to the hotel. And the guy's like, no. Like, I want you guys to see this. I want to show it to you. And he's just very insistent that he's going to finish up what we talked about. Like, he really wants to go to this temple. And it was just like, wow, like, that's not really something you see. Like, this guy is just so nice. So, and in like the hotel that I stayed in that day, they had like a little birthday cake for me too. It's like, wow, these people really know how to, if you want to celebrate your birthday big, go to Thailand. Those people really, really care about it. Yeah.
I've met a few people that have said like very similar kind of stuff, that they, that have lived there, and they just like, they would go back, and then if they had the opportunity in an instant, like of all the places, I've heard that like Thailand keeps kind of bubbling up as one of those, like, you got to go, and if you can stay as long as you can, and if you can live there. There's a guy that I went to grad school with that is teaching at a school, at a like international school in Thailand, and he actually, his tenure, or not, his time was contract was coming up or something. He was really sad about possibly having to leave, but then he got a new job and he stayed on. So he's been there for good several years now. So yeah.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a good place to live for expats and things. You know, for the US standards are relatively inexpensive. I mean, you can
Hmm.
stay at a hotel for probably, I don't know, $20, $30. Although I kind of took advantage of it, and they have Shangri-La's there, which they do all over the world. And yeah, it's a really like kind of fun, like high-end hotel that's really kind of
Okay.
fancy. Um,
Okay.
they would have maybe in other countries like $600 a night, but for there, I think it was like less than $200 a night. So
Which
it
is
was like
kind
a
of standard for
splurge.
a
Yeah,
medium
like for
level
like
hotel
a
here.
right, like a Comfort Inn would be the same amount pretty much over
Yeah.
here. So yeah, the hotels, they were just beautiful and gorgeous and really, really great. So, you know, instead of going for the $30 route, it's like, hey, we're gonna kind of splurge, which isn't really a splurge for um us in general when you think about how much it would cost elsewhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was really cool to kind of stay those places and kind of get that experience as well. So yeah, overall it was just great. Like there wasn't anything, you know, bad about it. It was a little hot, but you kind of, you know, you prepare for that, you know, going
Sure.
into it. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
the beaches were beautiful.
So we've hit all the continents, right? Except for the one
Antarctica.
down
Yeah.
below.
Yeah.
We're waiting for this.
So this was 2019 that I went to Thailand. And I will say 2019 was kind of when I was hitting my travel stride. Like, so, you know, I'd gone to
Yeah.
Thailand that year, I went to Amsterdam, I'd gone to Belgium, we went to
Wow.
Mexico. And in the US, I went to, I think it was Vermont, Kentucky, Minnesota, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, I think, oh, Arizona, and
All
then
in
Florida,
2019.
all in 2019. I was like hitting my stride and I was ready to do that again for 2020.
Uh,
So in
I bet you
2020,
were.
yeah, 2020, I actually had decided, okay, this is when I'm going to go to Antarctica. And I saved up my money for years to go because, like I said, I made the goal back when I was going to Europe a lot. I was like, all right, I'm going to go to all the continents, and I saw Antarctica is expensive, so I sort of started to save my money pretty early on for that because I knew that was going to be an expensive trip. So that was the plan. I booked Antarctica for 2020 in January. And obviously, to go to Antarctica, you have to go to either, I believe it's New Zealand or Chile to get there.
Okay.
So Chile, obviously, a lot closer. So I was going to go to South America again. So I had that planned for early 2020 was those
Oh.
two trips. A couple other trips I had planned for 2020 that didn't happen, obviously, because the pandemic happened. My friends and I were going to Russia. We actually had all of our tickets ready to go to Russia.
Oh.
Yeah, we were going to go, I believe it was October of 2020. Faroe Islands, which I ended up going this year, thankfully. I was finally able to go there. And then Mexico, which I go there a lot anyway. But those are my trips all planned for 2020. Probably was going to be more, but that was kind of hitting my stride in 2019 that this is what I'm enjoying doing and I want to, you know, do more of it. So
So did you spend some time in Chile?
yeah, I think it was 3 weeks in Chile. Because you
Oh
know,
wow.
Chile's like the longest country in the world. And again, you know, when I'm traveling somewhere, I want to kind of get a feel for the different vibes of a country. So yeah, so went into Valparaiso, which is close to the airport of where we first went into, and that's really a cool place. It has a lot of graffiti art everywhere, and it's also a known region for wine. And prior to going to Chile, I'd always really loved like Chilean wine, like that and Argentina were kind of my favorites. So that
Okay.
was kind of neat to kind of see the wine country there. And then I actually flew up north to the desert area, and it just was really beautiful up there. Like they have a lot of that, like that salt kind of thing, you know, they have in Utah, the
Hmm.
different salt flats. And then
Yeah.
they have a place that is similar to the Dead Sea, and that there's all this salt in it, so you can sort of float in the water as well.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, so it was really neat to go there. And then I flew down to Patagonia and was able to, see that sort of terrain
Nice.
and the atmosphere. And that was really cool. So it's such a diverse country, probably one of the most diverse because of just how long it is and how, the climate is different in all these different spots. So that was a really awesome trip in of itself, just doing that. And from
That was
there,
just part one, though, right?
yeah, from there, Punta Arenas is where I went out of to go to Antarctica. And so the one thing that I was not looking forward to when it came to Antarctica is you basically normally have to go through the Drake Passage to get to Antarctica. So you would basically either go from Chile or go from Argentina, and you hop on the boat from there, and then you're pretty much going through this crazy, crazy water for 2 days. And they're just, if you Google like the Drake Passage and look at different YouTube videos, you can just see how crazy it is. Like the water and the waves can be just really, really like awful for like 48 hours. A lot of people will
And
just
like
stay in their room and be like seasick for the whole time.
seasick, yeah. Ugh.
But I was not trying to do that. And I actually found a organization that does Fly the Drake, it's called. So Quirk Expeditions is the company that I went with. And so they actually have options where you can just fly over the Drake Passage, so you don't have to deal with that.
Huh?
And then you can just fly to specific island and then hop on the boat, and then you can, explore Antarctica. So that's what I did. Of course, as
Nice.
you can imagine, that's a lot more expensive, but I've been saving for several years for that. So that's what I
Yeah,
ended
it's
up
worth it.
doing. Yeah. And it was just really awesome. We actually had to leave a day early because of the weather. Like we were supposed to get there a day early so that the next day we could get on the boat and fly over there and everything. But it
Yeah.
turned out that the weather was going to be bad on the day that we were supposed to do that. So they made us leave early, which was great for pretty much everyone. I think 2 people ended up missing the whole entire thing because
Oh
they
no.
weren't getting there early. Yeah. But luckily I was already there, being in Chile and staying at the hotel the day before.
Okay.
So I was able to, jump on there. And yeah, and I mean, it's more of an expedition. It's definitely not like your average cruise ship where you're just sort of hanging out and relaxing and everything. It's kind of rough. Um,
Yeah.
I ended up sharing a room with someone that I didn't know. And I was kind of worried about that before I went because I like generally don't really like sharing rooms with people. And a cruise ship has those tiny, tiny little rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm weird in that I really like it cool in my room. And here we're in Antarctica and I like was, putting the air conditioner on and stuff. And luckily my roommate was cool and she was like fine with that. But
Okay.
other people might not have been so happy with that. So she happened to be from Portugal and she was really nice. So we shared our room together on the ship there. And yeah, and so pretty much when you're doing an Antarctica cruise, you don't really have a set itinerary because it all depends on weather and conditions and
Mm.
stuff. So there's all these different islands you could potentially go to, but they don't really know until you're actually on there, and you don't really know until the day before. Literally, like the night
Sure.
before, they'll have a briefing. So you'll have your dinner, and after dinner, you'll go to these briefings, and they'll tell you where you're going the next day. That's how unplanned it has to be, just because of
Wow.
the weather. And we were lucky in that we happened to go all the way down south past the Antarctic Circle. And they said that that was the first time in the season that they had done that because of weather
Oh,
conditions and whatnot, and because we had gotten there like the day early.
that's great.
So we actually went really, really far, far south, which was really awesome. And we did 2 continental Antarctica landings. So a lot of times when people go to Antarctica, they go to the little islands next to Antarctica, but not necessarily on the continent itself. But we did 2 continental landings, and it was about 10 days in Antarctica, which is great because a lot of these Antarctica cruises, you'll see it'll say, 5 or 7 day Antarctica trip. But then again, people are doing the Drake Passage, and you're spending about
Right.
4 days sea before you get there. So we literally
Oh, okay.
spent 10 days exploring Antarctica, which was really awesome. It was interesting how diverse a lot of the little islands were, because you wouldn't really think so. Some of the islands were volcanic island. They had another island where there was a lot of whaling industry. So they still had kind of remnants from that. Like it was kind of a little village during that time. You'll just go to these different islands and then they're just all of these like thousands of little penguins running around, and they have different types of species of penguins as well. So yeah, it's really, you really see a lot, and it's not just ice. Like a lot of people kind of wonder what's down there. Yeah, it's not just ice. One question I get a lot, which is kind of funny, I will say, is people ask me if I saw polar bears, and polar bears are in the Arctic. So do not see polar bears in Antarctica. So that's kind of an interesting misconception a lot of people
Well, the
have.
thing that I'm most curious about though is, did you see any seals? Because I have an obsession with them.
Yeah, we definitely saw a lot of seals as well and a lot of whales. So basically what they'll do is there can only be 100 people on the particular parts of the island at any given time. So there's no other ships. It's only going to be your ship. And I think we had about 120 people on our ship. So while half the group is on the particular island or on the continent exploring, the other half is on either zodiacs or kayaks exploring the water and what's around there. So
cool.
yeah,
so we do a lot of time in the water.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of whales and a lot of seals in that way. And I actually upgraded to get the kayaking every day. Some people only did it a couple of times, but you basically can either go on a Zodiac boat, which is kind of like a rubber looking boat where about 10 people can sit on there. And that goes a little bit faster.
It has a motor on the back.
Yeah, it has a motor. Or the kayaking, I think it was about 15 of us, where it's a small intimate group and they kind of go off on their own and kayak around. And I was a little bit nervous about that too, because while I've kayaked here in the US, I'm thinking, gosh, like kayaking in Antarctica, that's kind of scary because, you can fall in and the water's freezing. There's also whales everywhere, which, some of them can be really dangerous. So I was a little bit nervous about that. But we would only kayak when the conditions were okay. And I think every time but one day we were able to go out and do the kayaking. And that was one of the best parts. It was just like so intimate with just 12 people in the middle of just the wild, and just sitting there listening to like the ice crackling. Like it sounds like Rice Krispies, like that kind of sound. And then there's just ice all in the water, and then you have these like seals and you have these whales just swimming around, and it was crazy. And then every now and then you'll see like some ice drop in the corner, and yeah, it's so beautiful and it's very surreal. And
what was the temperature like?
It wasn't that cold because it was their summer, so it was basically 24-hour sunlight, and it wasn't that cold. I think probably 20 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I would say. It wasn't that cold, especially in the kayak, because you're wearing a dry suit, and we had the kayak skirts. Have you kayaked with the skirts where you put them over? So that kind of keeps your body really warm, actually. I was surprised by how warm I was in the kayak versus the Zodiac, where you have the motor and you have that wind in your face.
You're going
one
faster,
day. Yeah, one day was the coldest, I will say, because we were on the Zodiac and it was snowing and it was really windy. So my face felt really chapped just by that. But that was kind of the only experience I felt where I was really cold. And you have to wear specific gear. Like they give you the coat to wear, and they make you wear like ski pants or something. And then they give you certain boots to wear out. And they also have you kind of wash your boots when you come in, because they don't really want you to take anything in or out to the continent to sort of, mess it up. Before you go to, they actually have some type of a vacuum where they vacuum different particles in your luggage to kind of keep away, anything from you dropping, on the continent, because they really try to keep it undisturbed. Because I mean, that's the cool thing about it, is there's not really anywhere else in the world that's so undisturbed by people, you know.
Right.
The only people that live in Antarctica are scientists and military, and they're only in specific areas. So all of these places are just inhabited by the wildlife. And the cool thing about it is they don't really see people as like anything other than a tree. Like they don't really see you as a food source. They don't really see you as danger when, you know, you'll go out to a park and all the birds scatter when you're walking by because, you know, they see you as being scary. So yeah, so it was so cool that they just are going about their business, doing their thing while you're hanging out and just like sitting there and just watching them. It's just so interesting. And it's so wild too that you will come across like, you know, dead penguins and stuff, just because that's the way it is. Like you'll just see like some, you know, something that had gotten eaten. You see a lot of birds try to get the little babies kind of swooping down. I didn't see any of them succeed, but you do see the attempts there. And yeah, and it's so different and, you know, very surreal. And it's just crazy to think that you get to be there and be a part of that when, I mean, who knows what it'll be like in 50 years over there, you know? So that was just such a really amazing experience. And yeah, in general, it was just such an amazing experience. And it was very go, go, go. It was kind of like,
my earphone just died. I'll be right back.
So many different types of birds, which is pretty awesome. And then all the penguins. So yeah, it's just so much wildlife to see and just how beautiful with all of the different ice that you're seeing. Yeah, it's just really amazing. It's definitely an expedition. So pretty much in the morning, they'll do a landing, you know, you'll be on your boat for maybe an hour and then you'll go on the actual, you know, landing, whether it's the island or the continent, for maybe another hour, and then you get up and then you go to another spot too. So you're constantly going. And then when you're on the boat, a lot of times they'll have wildlife spotting. So they'll see a lot of whales in the water too. So then you'll run up there and see them. And it's a lot of like a fireman or something, because you're constantly pulling on and off clothes because it's so cold outside that you're, you know, pulling all your gear on, running outside, seeing it, coming back. Then you got to go eat. Yeah, and in the stuff that we wore for kayaking was different too. You know, you have to wear your dry suit in case you fall in the water. And you always have to have your life vest on for any type of boating activities. So yeah, it was constantly changing clothing, running up and down, seeing the wildlife. And they also had the polar plunge. And again, yeah, this is another thing that I never had thought about doing. So the same with the whole bungee jumping. I never thought like, oh yeah, the polar plunge is something I want to do, because you know they have that where we're from, like around Sandy Point. Like every winter they'll do this polar plunge, and I always thought that was just dumb. I was like, why is people running into the water when it's so cold? Like that's not fun. But here I am in Antarctica, and they're deciding to do that. It was one of those things. Yeah, it was like, all right, well, I'm here. Yeah, I have to do it. What better place to do it than the Antarctic Circle in Antarctica? So, yeah, so did that. That was cold. It was really cold. And it was funny before I went, because everyone said the worst thing is they basically will put a little harness around your body just in case you get shocked from jumping in the water and they have to pull you back and they don't want to lose you. So they basically will put a little harness around your waist. And everyone kept saying the worst thing is how cold that is when they put that on your body. But that was not the worst thing. The worst thing is jumping in the water and how freaking cold it is. So I did that. Probably
what's the water temperature like?
It's like 0 degrees Celsius. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, then there's like a bunch of ice floating around too. You know, it's just like random ice cubes around. So.
And you weren't like in your wetsuit, I assume. You were just in
no. They don't allow you to do that. Doesn't that suck? Like that would be so easy if you wear a dry suit and just jump on there. Nope, you're wearing your swimsuit. So they don't let you drink before doing it either. So it's kind of like you would want a little shot of liquid courage maybe to warm you up. But no, they don't allow you to, because they don't want you, you know, to have any more reason to not be able to make it back. So they do
Right.
give you one when you come back in, but at that point you're so cold, you
Okay.
just want to kind of run into your room and shower. So yeah, so that was really, really fun. And then they had like a little barbecue on the boat too. So it's it's kind of like the end of it. They'll do like this little cookout at the top and everyone eats, outside. And yeah, the whole thing was really just amazing and different. And it really pulls you out of your comfort zone. It's definitely exhausting because, like I said, it's constant, up and down, running outside, jumping on the boat, on the Zodiac, and the water is a little bit rough at certain points. So, but yeah, it's definitely like a once in a lifetime experience, sort of going there and doing that. And of course, with the money wise, like most of the people that were there were more of like the retired age in senior citizens because that's kind of the people who can afford it. But I was very impressed with just like their endurance too, because like I said, it's not really this sort of relaxed hangout, chill sort of a thing. It's a very like, expedition focus. So these people, I was like, wow, they're really
I
like,
imagine, I mean, just like getting older and having kids and how tired I am all the time, I can imagine that like once your kids are off or whatever, or you're retired and you don't have to go to work anymore, that it's kind of like a second wind of life.
that's
I
true.
can see that
Yeah.
being, I don't know if that's accurate, but
That might
I
be
can
for
definitely,
them. Yeah, that totally might
I
be.
hope. I know my grandmother traveled a lot. She was she raised 5 kids and was a school teacher until she retired, and then she traveled the world after, but she was, in her probably late 60s, I want to say at that point, so.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a lot for sure of energy with that. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was just really like such an amazing experience. And I mean, we just lucked out so much with the weather because the group that was going after us, they actually ended up having to cancel their trip because the weather was bad in the sense that it was just like they had to keep delaying it. And when you sign up for it, I mean, I'm sure they probably will let people come another time, but when you sign up for it, you definitely sign that, okay, I might have my trip delayed a few days because of the weather. And that's just it. Like I might just not have as much time as I'm expecting because you can't predict the weather in Antarctica. It's crazy. So we really lucked out with being able to go a day early
Awesome.
and then, being able to go all the way down by the Antarctic Circle and just all of the landings we got to do and being on the continent twice and all the islands. So yeah. Oh, and we actually saw from afar in binoculars an emperor penguin. So emperor penguins are only
Ooh.
on the west side of Antarctica. For whatever reason, there was like a random emperor penguin, and we were all able to kind of see
Yeah.
it from the binoculars. And emperor penguins, for people who don't know, they're kind of the bigger ones, the ones that are probably the height of like a regular person. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was really amazing to see them. Yeah. So we saw a lot of different species of penguin, and yeah, really awesome.
So you got all 7 continents.
Right before the pandemic. And I did forget to mention that this was the end of January 2020 going into February 2020. And that was right after we're all finding out about like this coronavirus, So it was a little bit nerve-wracking because had somebody come down with coronavirus at that time, we're in the middle of nowhere. We do have Yeah, we do have a doctor on board, but she's obviously like not equipped to deal with the coronavirus. So we would have probably taken 2 days to get to somewhere for help in a helicopter that would have to do emergency. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking at that time as well. At that point in their history to go up, I was a little bit nervous about it. And then literally like a month later, it's shutting down, everything's shutting down. So I kind of just made it. Yeah, I was really, really lucky to kind of, be able to do all that prior to that happening. And I even fit in another trip in March of 2020. I went to Madeira, Portugal. Yeah, right before everything shut down. And I believe when I was in Madeira, we had the first case in Maryland, like it was on the news. I believe it was March 5th. Like they broadcast all the way Madeira, our Governor Hogan, talking about
So
the
you
first case
were
in Maryland.
almost one of those people that were like stuck abroad.
And
before
a
they
week
try to.
later, Portugal was not letting anybody in or out at the week after we got back from Portugal. So I was really just like hitting everything sort of last minute at that time. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
You have a lot of good luck following you around.
It seems like it. Yeah, I do feel like I have pretty good travel luck. Yeah, everything kind of seems to work out pretty well.
Well, and part of that I'm sure is because you're flexible, you're open to change, and yeah, things just being what they are and not having it be like a meet your expectations a certain way.
Well, I am very hardcore with my itineraries, I will say. And I do get a little bit like, and I've it's developed, since then, but I would get a little bit annoyed if things didn't go according to plan sometimes, especially when you're somewhere that you're never going to be again and you think this is my only opportunity to do like X, Y, and Z. I think I was okay about it in Antarctica. Like, I was by myself. Honestly, with the coronavirus at that time, that's what it was called. Didn't really know a lot about it. So I did feel a little bit uneasy about having people take my picture because, handling your stuff, you don't really know at that time, like how the COVID was transmitted and all that. I actually didn't go in the hot tub either because I wasn't really sure about that. So, I mean, you just didn't know at that point because it was so early on. But yeah, and people from all over the world too that were on there. Like I said, there was only about 120 people, but still people were they were from Russia, they were from Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan. Yeah, there were people from everywhere. So, at that point, you don't really know where things are coming from. I mean, I am very into itineraries. I think I have gotten a little bit more flexible in the past couple of years that the itineraries basically it's like, okay, we don't have to do everything on the itinerary, but like here's sort of a blueprint of where I want to go and what I want to see. Because I do like planning trips for myself. And there's studies that have been done that people who plan trips are happier than the people who just go on the trip. Like the actual planning process kind of helps people be happier because it's, something that you're looking forward to. And then you can get kind of excited about it. So I usually always plan on my trips. I'm not really a group trip person. Obviously with Antarctica, you have to go with a group trip. You can't really go there on your own. But I definitely prefer planning things myself and doing the research myself and like, driving yourself, that kind of a thing. I just feel like it's a richer experience and you get to kind of do more of what you want. And
more spontaneity too.
Yeah.
More unpredictability that way.
Yeah, like right. You see something you like and then you're not kind of, I mean, like a lot of group trips. Thailand. Exactly. Yeah. A lot of group trips too. It's like, maybe you don't want to do every single thing that's on the itinerary. Maybe you don't want to go do like a sushi making class in Japan, but that's like on the itinerary. So you're doing it, So yeah, I definitely prefer not having to do group trips. And there's a time and a place. Like, for example, I am looking at Namibia in the next couple of years. And
that's what I was going to ask you, like what your upcoming plans are.
Yeah, so I was looking at Namibia and they don't really have very clear roads. So that probably wouldn't really be very smart to sort of drive myself through Namibia. Mm-hmm. So that might be an option for that. Other things I've looked into is I just think in general, it might be fun just to drive certain places in the US and just sort of stay for a month and explore there. One place I was thinking, Santa Fe, New Mexico, I really loved and really enjoyed. That was one of my birthday trips years ago. So I think that would be kind of fun to just stay there as a home base and just, look around for, I don't know. Out. Yeah. Yeah. I have Panama coming up in March. That's another birthday trip that I'm planning. So I'm headed to Panama then. But we will see. I'm just going to kind of see what comes up for next year, depending on trips. But Africa would definitely be somewhere that I would love to go and visit again, just any country there, because it was just so amazing in South Africa. So looking up there, one thing that became something that I was really interested in while I was in Antarctica, talking to the people, is a lot of people were talking about how they really did enjoy going to the Arctic and seeing polar bears. Speaking of polar bears, so that was something that I was interested in doing. And I was thinking in 2020 that would be something that I would probably do. So I did a lot of research, and there's a lot of places that you can see polar bears, but one of the places that is really well known and a lot of people said is really great in Churchill, Canada, in the fall, a lot of them kind of are on the coast. So you get to sort of see all these bears on the coast, and you get to kind of get like up close versus when you're on a boat where you can kind of see them,
Right.
from afar. And obviously you got to be a little bit more careful with being around polar bears than you do like penguins, in terms of getting close to them. So that's something I'm really interested in doing. I was thinking about doing it this past October, but the one that I was looking at, I actually wanted to be there for Halloween because the little town is kind of interesting and people go trick-or-treating, and then all these people, I guess, kind of patrol the area with guns to make sure that like polar bears don't come and get these kids while they're trick-or-treating. So I just thought that would be a really interesting sort of, social thing to see. So maybe next Halloween, I might look into that, to go to Churchill and see the polar bears like that. Because it is really neat, like just these animal experiences, just seeing the animals in their wild. Whenever I've done that, it's just really like amazing to do. Like, seeing them in Antarctica on their own, seeing them in South Africa. It's just so cool. One of my trips that I was supposed to do in 2020 was going to Mexico, but swimming with whale sharks. And that would have been in June.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I want to do that so bad. Seals and whale shark are two things that it's on my bucket list of I need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that seems really neat. And the whale sharks are vegetarian, so in theory, they're not going to eat us. Or they just take like a deep breath and you happen to be there and they just kind of like suck you in like in Pinocchio or something.
Yeah. Yes. Or Jonah and the whale. Like you've done a lot of domestic travel too, right? Like you recently just went to Zion. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was sent to Vegas for a work trip. So then before my work trip, I just decided to kind of explore some of the national parks over there. And I will say for people who are thinking about solo traveling, but maybe they feel like it might be uncomfortable for them because maybe they feel like they need to have someone with them. I definitely think hiking in national parks are sort of the way to go when it comes to solo travel because sometimes it's a lot more fun to hike by yourself because you're setting your own pace. You don't really have to, keep up with someone or wait for somebody. And then national parks are good too, because if something bad happens, if maybe you get off trail or get a little bit confused, national parks have a lot of people in general. So you can kind of have somebody help you out there versus going maybe somewhere a little bit more wild where if you get lost, it's kind of becomes a problem. So yeah, I was by myself and it was funny. There was a Facebook group I'm part of. And this woman several months ago, she was like, oh, I live near Utah. If anybody is interested in like coming by and staying, I have like an Airbnb that, I would let you all stay for free. So I was like, hey, I'm going to be going to Vegas area. And I was looking at going to Zion. And I messaged her and sure enough, she let me stay at her little Airbnb for free for 2 days. And she took me to this really amazing spot. I believe it's called Canera. There's a lot of slot canyons and it's a lottery system where it's only about 150 people a day are able to go. So it's very serene and there's like not that many people there. And the slot canyons are really close together. So they look really cool. So because of this local person that I wouldn't have thought about doing this or going there before, she was able to kind of introduce me to this place that I like loved. And I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit more than Zion just because of the serene and like there's no people there. There was like nobody else there really that we ran into. So that was a lot better than national parks where it's like everybody is there.
Wow.
But I did do Angel's Landing in Zion, and Another cool thing about doing hikes is that you just feel so accomplished, when you're done. Like it feels amazing that like, oh, I did this. And for people who don't know, Zion is a very challenging hike in the United States. They have a lot of these chains that you sort of pull your body up to get to, like the top point. And it's very strenuous. It's ranked as one of the most dangerous hikes in the US. And obviously that's why I wanted to do it, because
Fun,
I
yeah.
just have a thing for danger. Yeah, it was a little bit more crowded than I expected for being end of September, because I would think everyone's back at school, like that kind of a thing. And then on my way to Nevada, Valley of Fire State Park, which was so beautiful. Like I actually ended up staying at a hotel right outside there. And I got there when the sun was rising and there was like nobody else. I didn't see any other people there. This was October 1st and they just opened up this hike that is similar to the Wave in Arizona. And the Wave in Arizona, people have to get a lottery to do. But this one was really beautiful. And they only have it open, I believe, from October 1st until maybe April 1st or maybe March 31st, because it gets so hot there. I think it can get up to like 120 degrees. Yeah. So luckily I happened to be there I was driving through at October 1st, the day that it's finally opened. And that was really beautiful to see. And I think it made me really think that I want to prioritize more state parks than national parks, just because of, the fact that there's not as many people. So I'm going to look into that a little bit more.
Last time I went to, it was Yosemite, Yellowstone too. I had a similar kind of thought, like, this is an amazing place. But when I was in like the city of tent cabins and the commissary halls and everything, it was still beautiful, like landscape, but it was also like really kind of, I don't know, just gross and over humanized. It didn't feel like the wilderness wild as much as it felt more like a wild theme park.
I think in general, like unfortunately, since the pandemic, prices of everything have just completely skyrocketed. There was a time when you can get pretty cheap flights for pretty much anywhere. Like I even had booked tickets to go to Japan for, I think it was $400 something. Like that trip didn't end up happening, but yeah, that would be like unheard of nowadays to look for that. And also with Airbnbs, with all the fees, they're so expensive. So there's different resources like Scott's Cheap Flights that kind of, will send out specific flight alerts to people who are traveling from different airports, which is helpful. And then I also think like the travel rewards cards are always really helpful for people to get rewards there. Prior to the pandemic, I opened up, I believe it was like a Delta card. And if you're doing a big purchase, that's always a good time to sort of open up a new card. So when I was paying off my my Antarctica trip, I was like, all right, well, this is expensive. So I'm going to open up a new card and, I would be paying for it anyway. And now I'm just getting all these points because when you open up these new cards, you normally have to spend like X amount of money within, 3 months. So that was easily done with that. So a lot of times if people are making big purchases, that really helps in getting points. One thing that I've done a lot, and Southwest is currently at the moment getting really bad press for what they've done like around the holidays. However, I feel like I get a lot of really good free flights from them with traveling, and they also have shopping portals. So when you shop through like Delta or United or Southwest, just regular places, like you're buying something from Walmart or Macy's or something like that, if you purchase it through their portal, then you can also get points. So that really helps with traveling. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of points from Southwest in that sense. And they don't have all of the stores, but sometimes you can actually get a gift card. I think it was like Petco or something on Southwest. They didn't actually have for you to shop through them, but if you buy a gift card that you're going to spend anyway, then you get the points for the gift card. So that kind of helps too. And they've also have different surveys you can do to get points. So there's a lot of ways to get points for travel with things like that. And then some of the budget airlines, like there used to be WOW Air going to Iceland, and Iceland is another one of my favorite places. And that's gone, but now they have something called Play that is sort of similar to how WOW Air worked. But of course, with these budget airlines, a lot of people just have to be aware of, making sure that they are booking a seat or or their luggage like right away, or else they kind of get, last minute, and then they find out, oh shoot, that's $100 more than it would have been. So just kind of like looking out for those type of things. And yeah, and just I think looking when people are trying to plan their own trip, I a lot of time will just Google the name. Like I would do like Utah National Park itinerary blog or something like that. And then a lot of times you'll get good information kind of popping up there. And I always like plug it into my Google Maps so that I can sort of see how close everything is to each other and, map out restaurants and stuff. So yeah, so those are some of the things that I do. But it is hard right now for, to come across like cheaper options, but those are some options. And I personally really like Southwest. I think that they normally have pretty good deals. Yeah, and I always check my bag, and I like having a good seat. So that adds up a lot when you're, going for a different airline. So I'm a fan, even though they've had problems lately. And they have had a couple of issues. I went to Arkansas and Missouri recently, and they were delayed, and it wasn't really their fault, but they did say on the speaker something about mechanical issues. So then I was able to get a voucher for like a few $100 because I just sent in with the survey about how they had mechanical issues, and they're just like, all right, here's a voucher. So I feel like they're pretty good about that too when they are screwing up to give you like a voucher for things. So all right, well, it was great catching up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for giving so much like insight and wisdom to all your experiences. And there's so many little details and stuff. I knew about a lot of these trips, but I didn't know all the little things that went on. So thank you for your time and your expertise.
Yeah, for sure.